What's going on, everyone? So one of the shocking, bigger, maybe even the biggest acquisition trade this offseason was Damian Lillard to the Milwaukee Bucks. And what a roller coaster that was, right? First off, from the Milwaukee Bucks side, you have Giannis putting a lot of pressure on the organization and really kind of bringing the question of is Giannis really going to leave the Milwaukee Bucks? And look, I still don't think that they're completely out of the woods. I do think Damian Lillard really does help kind of keep Giannis there, especially if they're very good and they can kind of figure it out and work it out. But I do think that it put Milwaukee in a position where they kind of need to push their chips to the table that I don't think that they would have otherwise, right? If Giannis didn't really ever say anything, I think that they would have just kind of rode out the season. But when Giannis basically is saying hey, I'm leaving unless something changes, you kind of got to go make something change. And then the Damian Lillard side of things, I mean, come on, that was a constant roller coaster ride, right? It's just he looks like he's headed to Miami or bust, that's it. Miami's got it done. I mean, there were talks and reports of it's a done deal. They're just kind of working out the pieces. And, oh, well, maybe it's the Nets, right? Oh, maybe it's Toronto. Toronto has just jumped in ahead. Toronto's the team that's coming out of left field. They're the Cleveland Cavaliers for Donovan Mitchell, and we just saw this last offseason and all that stuff. And, we talked heavily about all those reports and stuff like that because it is news and it is fun to talk about. And it's fun to kind of, follow the mystery of where's Dame going to go? Is he going to stay in Portland, right? Cronin's playing hardball. What's going to end up happening here? And ultimately, it wasn't the Miami Heat. The Milwaukee Bucks come out of left field and they swoop up Damian Lillard. And we are now finally going to get the first look at this duo that could end up being one of, if not the best duos in the entire league this year. And we're going to get to see them against the Los Angeles Lakers, which, as you know, if you're familiar with me and all my little channels on the As It Stands networks, then you know that I'm a diehard Laker fan. Got Lakers channel. If you're a Laker fan, go subscribe to As It Stands Lakers and AIS The Lake Show. But it's more so of here's the first glimpse. It's not so much about how does it look in, the 15 minutes that they play in preseason, right? It's not, it's more so of just here is the first minor, small sample size. Does it have some cohesiveness? Does it have just zero? Is it awkward? Is it clumsy? Is it how does it look, right? Because you are going to be able to get a little bit of an understanding of how this pairing will look, at least early on. You got to figure the more games that they play, the further into the season, the more they figure it out and the better that they get, right? But there are a lot of questions in regards to these two and how does it work, right? Damian Lillard and Giannis are both used to being the number one guys. Damian Lillard, his entire career, has been the number one guy. And he is the better offensive player, right? But Giannis is the better overall player, and it's his team, and he's always been the number one guy. So is there this kind of butting of the Rams to establish dominance? Is Damian Lillard going to be okay kind of taking that back seat and being the second option? Does Giannis kind of say, you know what? Damian Lillard is the better offensive player. Let him get the offensive things. I can still go get my 20 to 25 and kind of be the defensive anchor. That could be a possibility. Maybe that's kind of what they figure out, right? I don't know if they'll be able to be completely figured out this season, right? I mean, even LeBron in Miami and stuff, a lot of these, super teams that get put together or super pairings that get put together usually takes a year or two to kind of figure it out and get it established enough to where it's okay, here we go. Here's the real threat. And Damian Lillard, he solves a lot of what Milwaukee's issues are. That go-to scorer down the stretch that can close games, because Giannis isn't that guy. Right? And they were having to rely heavily on Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton, who both are great players in their own right, but they're not that guy. Like, they're not the guy you want closing games in a game 7 of a playoffs for you. Damian Lillard is that guy, right? And Damian Lillard is just the better natural gifted scorer, shooter, all of that, right? But you also give up a lot. He's undersized compared to Jrue Holiday. He's nowhere near the defensive player. So now you don't have that point of attack guard. Chris Middleton's going to have to take on a much bigger role defensively, right? And are you going to be able to be good enough defensively to win an NBA championship and mask Damian Lillard's flaws? Right? There's no doubt Damian Lillard makes the Milwaukee Bucks a much bigger offensive threat, but he makes them a much worse defensive threat. And Giannis and Brook Lopez were the best defensive big man duo in the league last year. They were the best defensive front court in the league last year. But now they're going to have so much more pressure that they didn't have the last few years, because you had a guy in Jrue Holiday that could defend the best player on the other team and kind of take a world of pressure off of Giannis and Brook Lopez. That's going to require especially Giannis to be much bigger defensively than he has been the last few years, which, don't get me wrong, he's more than capable of. I mean, outside of Anthony Davis, he's been the best defensive player by like every metric there is. And even compared to Anthony Davis, he's not that far off. Like, I mean, you're talking like 0.2% difference, right? You're not even talking a full percent difference. So Giannis is going to be able to cover a lot of ground in that regard, but Damian Lillard's going to have to at least be serviceable, right? He's going to have to at least kind of keep the defensive player in line and funnel and things like that. But it's kind of like this push and pull. It's like, okay, well, we should have enough defensively to figure it out, right? But offensively, this just fixes and solves so many of our issues we've had the last few years. And I think it also kind of puts everybody in the order they should be, right? Right? Chris Middleton, I don't think is your second best player, right? I think Giannis is just so great, they were able to win with him as their second best player. And I mean, you can make an argument it was Jrue Holiday, but my point is that now you have the clear distinction. Giannis is your best player, Damian Lillard is your second best player, Chris Middleton is your third player, right? So now he's going to kind of get to fall into a pecking order, which I think will take a lot of pressure off of Chris Middleton to have to sort of overachieve, you know, on a regular basis and be consistent. Now, when he has those bad nights, then you can still make up for it with Damian Lillard. Problem is, Milwaukee lost depth. And look, Damian Lillard has not been a model of health the last few years, and neither has Giannis. And if either of those two miss any significant time, you know, knock on wood, if both of them miss any significant time together, Milwaukee could be DOA, right? And if either of them miss any significant time, that's going to be, Milwaukee could be in trouble because you're not going to have that consistency from a Jrue Holiday on both sides of the basketball, right? And, right, like if Giannis is out, Damian Lillard can handle a good bulk of the offense. But defensively, you might be terrible, right? And if Dame misses a bunch of time, you know, who, like, is Middleton going to be able to step up offensively to cover Damian Lillard's points? And then, because at least when you had Jrue Holiday, he was Mr. Reliable. You know, he was all reliable being on the basketball court. And if Giannis missed time, you had basically Jrue Holiday and Middleton both kind of able to pick up the slack offensively, right? And if, like, you know, Middleton was out or Jrue Holiday was out, Giannis, you know, you still had that other guy. Well, it just, now it's like Giannis is not that offensive threat, you know, that can help kind of close and finish things out. It could be a problem for the Bucks, right? They're incredibly just talented and front-loaded. There's no question about it. And they are very likely going to be one of, if not the best teams in the entire league, right? But to pretend like there's not real, genuine concerns about the Milwaukee Bucks would be silly, right? And most of the teams that have won the last 5 years have all been together multiple seasons, right? They've all had time to build that chemistry together, right? LeBron James and Anthony Davis, right? And then, Giannis, Middleton, and, you had Brook Lopez, and then they add Drew Holiday, but he's just he's that guy you could put on any team, right? The Warriors, they win, right? Denver has been together for several years now, right? So, Milwaukee's not in this terrible spot, but it's like, what is going to be their starting five? Is it going to be Damian Lillard and Malik Beasley? Because if it is, you might have one of the worst defensive backcourts in the entire league, right? Do they go with go bigger and maybe move Middleton to the 2 and maybe go Crowder at the 3 or something? That could be I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what they actually come up with here as they get in this. Do they go with maybe a campaign? I don't know. It's gonna be very interesting. But there's definitely I think they had to get Damian Lillard. They did. They had to go get this splash to try to keep Giannis and try to keep Giannis happy. And look, it's Damian Lillard. It's not like they just got some random guy. No, he's going to help Milwaukee tremendously. And he solved a big hole and a big issue that Milwaukee has, right? But you kind of closed one door to open another one. And, and then even now there's kind of this gust of wind that you need to kind of get through for that sunshine, right? And it's not a big gust of wind, but it's something that hey, you're gonna have to wait it out here for a minute, and then you'll get the sunshine. And that gust of wind is basically, will Damian Lillard and Giannis be able to figure it out, be able to put the egos aside? Because again, Giannis, he hasn't had to play with another star. Right? He hasn't had to play with another number one option. Right? Neither has Damian Lillard. And Damian Lillard's the vet. He's the old head compared to the two. He's the better offensive player. So does he, is there times where he gets frustrated because he doesn't get his 25 shot attempts per game? And, Giannis is taking these silly shots that should be going to Damian Lillard. It's just, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting, but I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be quite a roller coaster ride. And I'm excited for the first look of Dame and Giannis. Again, I don't want to put too much stock into this preseason game. I don't. It's going to be fun to see. And I think it's going to be a little weird to see Dame in a Bucks jersey, but I whether they beat the Lakers by 30 or they lose to the Lakers by 30 in that 15 minutes or whatever, it doesn't mean it. I'm not going to take it either. I'm not going to be, oh, that's it, Lakers are the best team in the league. And I'm not going to be if they beat Milwaukee, that's it. Dame and Giannis are terrifying. Watch out. Again, you're not going to get a big enough sample size to really tell you anything. But you can kind of get the little breadcrumbs, right, to kind of give you an idea. Is it a little clunky? Are they kind of just going back and forth? Are they actually, playing within a flow together? Right? That's another thing. So, anyway, again, love to hear it. However your thoughts, whatever your opinions, let me know down in the comments.